Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Hey there, my magical friends, and welcome back to another episode of Witchy Work Wishes. I'm your host, Charlene, and today we are on episode number 132, talking about the difference between the Fae and Nature Spirits. I hope you are settled into your favorite cozy spot. You have a mug in hand and you are ready to soak up some enchantment. Things have been super busy in my world lately, and oh my gosh, in that whirlwind of witchy inspiration kind of way. Between tending to early garden dreams, sketching out plans, and building the coop for Hearth and Hen, and squeezing in just a little bit of moonlit journaling here and there, I have been dancing between the practical and the mystical. But isn't that just the witchy way, right? That's what we do. While you often hear me talking about moon phases and magical rituals, fae folklore for sure recently, right? And spells for the office, I also want to share something very dear to my heart, and that is the work that I do in the corporate world. Because yes, I am not just a witch. I am also a numbers-loving, spreadsheet-slaying, detail-driven business owner who has been proudly running her own bookkeeping and payroll practice for, oh my gosh, you guys, it's going to be 17 years this July. This business is my pride and joy. It is a world I have built from the ground up with intention and grit and a genuine passion for helping other entrepreneurs and business owners find clarity and peace and confidence in their financial systems. I've worked with businesses of all shapes and sizes, professionals, retail shops, wineries, restaurants, construction companies, consultants, everything in between. I bring not just technical knowledge, but honestly heartfelt care to every relationship. What I do is more than just bookkeeping. It's about creating order out of chaos. It's about building systems that support my clients so they can focus on their gifts and their growth. It's about empowering them with the knowledge that they need to make, smart, grounded financial decisions. Now, I handle everything from monthly reconciliations to full service payroll, financial reporting, budgeting support, and, consulting for long-term success. I'm also that person who actually likes tax season-ish. I do love showing my clients how to, stay ahead of it all with ease and grace. Now, I'm not saying that I don't get my ass kicked each tax season, but this is what I do. Now, what makes my approach unique is that I truly see this work as sacred. Numbers tell stories. Budgets hold dreams. And every paycheck that goes out is a thread in someone's life. And I honor that. Whether I'm helping a client, navigate a tough transition, maybe hire their first employee, or finally understand their cash flow. I bring both structure and heart into the process. And that work makes me feel really good. Stressed? Yes. Yes, it does. Tired? Oh gosh, yes, for sure. But good. Yes, very good. Now, living as a witch in today's world often means dancing between two very different realms. There is a sacred stillness of our homes, right? Where candles flicker and herbs hang from the kitchen beams and the energy just hums with our intention. And then there's the fast-paced, structured rhythm of the corporate world. We've got spreadsheets, or for me at least, right? Spreadsheets and deadlines and conference calls and coffee-fueled focus. But here's the truth. I believe both are magical. And finding the balance between them isn't about choosing one over the other. It's about learning how to weave your magic through it all. At home, it's easier, right? It's easier to be open about our craft. Our altars can live in plain sight. We can speak to our plants, cast spells in our kitchens, and work rituals by moonlight. Our homes actually become our sanctuaries, our little spell chambers and sacred workspaces. They are where we nurture ourselves and our magic. But when we step into the corporate world, that magic does not disappear. It simply changes form. Witchcraft in the workplace might look, less like lighting incense and more like setting intentions before a meeting. It may be subtle, a crystal tucked in your pocket, a sigil drawn in the corner of your planner, or a whispered affirmation before a really tough conversation. Maybe it's stirring your coffee clockwise while thinking of abundance, or, scheduling emails to go out during waxing moon energy to support your growth. Magic becomes the undercurrent. Quiet, strategic, but still very, very powerful. And you know what? Balancing these two worlds requires self-awareness, intention, and grace. It means honoring the different energies each space holds and deciding how you want your witchcraft to show up in both. That's what we do here at Witchy Work Wishes, right? This balance is our goal. But this balance also means giving yourself permission to be multifaceted. You can be analytical and intuitive. You can be professional and mystical. You could be a spreadsheet queen by day and a moon priestess by night. You are not hiding your magic in the workplace. You are really letting it guide you in ways that others may not even notice. There's a deep kind of empowerment in that. A knowing that you don't have to leave your magic at the door to be taken seriously. In fact, your witchcraft may be exactly what sets you apart. Your unique insight, your grounded presence, your ability to read energy in a room and act with clarity. So I got you. I've got your back on this one. This is what we do here. Every witch juggling career goals and cauldron stirs, know this. You are doing sacred work everywhere you go. Whether you are in heels or you are running around barefoot, whether you are in Zoom calls or tending to your altar, your magic is alive and well. It adapts, it thrives, and most importantly, it belongs. Now, my work, my corporation, my bookkeeping and payroll practice is the foundation that actually is supporting everything else I do, from recording this podcast to dreaming up new magical offerings. It's proof, though, that we can be both mystical and professional, intuitive and analytical. That we do not have to choose between magic and mastery. We can live and work in both worlds. Now, if you do actually want to help, though, if you've been feeling the magic in these episodes, if the stories, the spells, and the spirit talk have stirred something in your soul, I would love, love, love for you to join us over on the Witchy Work Wishes Patreon family. I really do personally want to invite you. Patreon is where we go deeper, and it is the direct support to what we do here. It's where the behind the scenes magic really does happen. And when you join, you are not just supporting this podcast. You really are stepping into a sacred circle of witches and seekers and soul-led creatives who are walking this path together. It's a space for connection, expansion, and encouragement, especially for those of us who are blending our spiritual lives with our practical working worlds. Everything over there really is tailored for this exact thing. So if you've been listening and thinking, yes, this is my vibe, please come over. We are waiting for you. You belong in this circle. Your support really does mean the world to me, and together we are creating, I think, something really, really magical here. I've got some amazing good news, oh my goodness, that I will be posting. It is about Hearth and Hen and the flock and what happened on the full moon of April. I am hoping to add that update this coming weekend, but I've got more work to do, so it could be a little bit delayed. So just be sure to check back to the Witchy Work Wishes website and the Hearth and Hen blog and over on Patreon. It is all going to be updated there. And while all of this has been unfolding, all of this work and tax season and Hearth and Hen, I have been noticing a lot of subtle energy shifts. Have you guys felt it? Right? Little breezes that feel like whispers, shadows that flicker just out of reach, dreams full of symbolism, and that deep, undeniable sense that something is watching, but with curiosity, not malice. This does happen to be my second most favorite time of the year. We are walking into Beltane, and a lot of energy is stirring. it has me reflecting a lot on the spirit world, especially the ones we've been talking about lately. If you've been following along the last couple of episodes, you know we've been diving deep into the realm of the Fae. We started with the gentle invitations of Fae magic and rituals, exploring how to work with the good folk respectfully and intentionally. Then we traveled a little deeper into the shadows with the dark Fae and shadow folk, discussing, those more unpredictable, cautionary aspects of these ancient beings and how sometimes they teach us through challenge rather than comfort. And now, here we are, today. Today, I want to explore a subtle but powerful distinction. Like, what's the difference between the Fae and nature spirits? While they both dwell in the liminal spaces of, the world, they are not the same. And knowing how to tell them apart can completely change how you interact with the energy around you. We are going to talk about who these spirits are, how they show up, and how to respectfully build relationships with each. I'll also guide you through the elemental beings, gnomes, sylphs, undines, and salamanders, and how they connect to the land itself. So whether you are a forest wandering witch or an apartment-dwelling one who feels the hum of spirit in your potted herbs, this episode has something for you. So take a breath, light a candle, and let's walk the path between worlds and talk about the Fae and nature spirits. Let's start with something I see come up a lot in our magical spaces, especially when we first begin connecting with the unseen, or it did for me at least. And that's the idea that the Fae and nature spirits are, in fact, one and the same. And while they can be both, wild and beautiful and mysterious, certainly rooted in the natural world, they are not the same thing. And knowing that, well, it matters. Understanding the difference between the Fae and nature spirits helps us work with them more respectfully and more effectively. It changes how we approach our rituals, our offerings, and our energetic expectations. Because when we lump them all together, we just risk disrespecting both, honestly, either by underestimating the Fae or by overcomplicating our relationship with the spirits of the land. So let's break it down. Witch to witch, let's just talk about the difference. The Fae, the good folk, the fair folk, the hidden ones, are a realm unto themselves. They may live near the land, but they are not of it, in the same way a river or tree spirit is. The Fae are otherworldly, often with their own courts. Right, we've talked about this, the Seelie and the Unseelie courts in the last couple episodes. They have their politics, and they have their own ancient magic. They are known to be tricksters, shapeshifters, and dancers between the veils. They have rules, right? But not human ones. And if you've ever had a brush with that kind of energy, the sharp, shifting, not quite here feeling, you know what I mean. It doesn't feel like the tree. It feels like something watching through the tree. Now, nature spirits are the spirit of the land itself, the essence of the river, the whisper in the stone, the song in the wind. These spirits are often much more rooted in place, right? They're grounded. They're nurturing, steady, and far more likely to respond to offerings of water, song, and silence. They may carry the energy of ancestors. They may carry the energy of animals or even ancient ecosystems. But they don't usually play games. They don't glamour. They just, they just are. That's the big difference in my experience. Nature spirits are of this world. The Fae are beside it. Now, I remember a moment early in my practice when I was leaving offerings, honestly, at the base of an old cedar tree. I thought I was connecting with the tree spirit, but the energy that responded was, it was like glittering, clever, and just a little too curious. It felt like it was watching me with humor more than reverence, right? Turns out I wandered into a space where the veil was thin, and the Fae had claimed part of that grove as a crossing point. The offering wasn't refused by any means, but it was taken in a very different way than I had intended. But it taught me. It taught me something. When we know who we're connecting with, we can craft our magic with clarity. We don't assume that every, shiver in the woods is a dryad, or that every beautiful whisper is a fairy's blessing. Sometimes it's the land. Sometimes it's the Fae. And sometimes maybe it's both. It's layered. It's asking us to listen just a little bit deeper. So as we go further into this topic today, let's carry that basic awareness with us. Just not all spirits are the same. Let's treat them with the care they deserve, knowing that, some are companions, some are watchers, and some are just simply beyond what we can name. All right, let's talk about who or what are the Fae. I'm going to zip through this pretty fast because we've talked about it in detail over the last 2 episodes, number 129 and 130, if you want to go backwards. The Fae are one of the most beautifully complicated parts of the unseen world. Who are they? What are they really? Are they spirits, creatures, gods, echoes of the land, or something entirely other? The answer is yes. And more. The Fae are deeply rooted in Celtic and European folklore, though their presence sketches far, far beyond those borders. But in old traditions, especially Irish, Scottish, Welsh, the Fae are often seen as beings of the other world. Not quite gods, not quite spirits, but something in between. They're the ones who dwell in the hollow hills, in the mist, in the glens that stay green when the rest of the land fades. They are both of this world and separate from it. You will hear them called many things. Good neighbors, the hidden people, the fair folk. And that's not just, poetic language. These names are used out of respect and caution. Calling them fairies, too freely, especially in older tradition, is, I think, sometimes said to draw their attention and not always in the way that you want. The Fae are not human. They do not follow human logic or morality. They are not inherently evil, but they're not inherently kind either. They are their own category of being, tricksters by nature. Some help, some hinder, and many do both depending on their mood and your manners. There is a reason offerings are left, circles are avoided, and iron is carried. Not because we fear them, but because we respect the rules of the old ways. Now, when we talk about the Fae, we are not just talking about one type of being either, right? There are entire categories and courts, each with their own agenda and energy. The most well-known distinction comes from Scottish lore, and that is the Seelie court fairies and the unseelie court fairies. The Seelie are often considered the light Fae, right? Playful, social, sometimes helpful to humans. But don't mistake that for harmless. They're still tricky, a little proud, and easily offended. Think of them as clever nobles, right? Charming, but quick to punish disrespect. Now, the unseelie, on the other hand, are the shadow side. More chaotic, more unpredictable, and often more dangerous. They do not play nice. They don't help without a price. If you feel a cold breeze on a still night or hear laughter in a place where there should be none, yeah, it could be them. And then we have the elemental Fae, spirits that seem to emerge directly from the natural world. These are going to be like our nymphs, who are often tied to trees, rivers, or mountains. The sylphs, right? The seal people who shift between ocean and shore. And the merfolk, who dwell in deep, enchanted waters. These beings are beautiful, powerful, and sometimes sorrowful. They walk the line between spirit and story, and their magic is ancient and raw. When you work with elemental Fae, you are working with nature at its most alive. Let's not forget the household Fae, the ones that are closest to us, and honestly, often the ones most overlooked. These are, our brownies and hobgoblins and Demovio type spirits, beings who live in and around the home and may help with chores and protect the space or just keep energy flowing if they are treated well. Throw them a little bit of cream, a little bit of bread, something small. These offerings can go a really long way. Offend them though, and you're going to know. Keys vanish, milk sours, everything just feels off. And then we've got, the dark fae, which I focused on last week. The ones who carry the weight of warning in folklore. These include the banshee, whose, keening is said to foretell death. Not cause it, right? Remember we talked about that, but like mourn it. We've got the red cap, a goblin-like being who stains his cap in blood. We've got the slaw, the spirits of the restless dead that fly in the wind and seek souls to steal. These beings aren't evil in the, that like cartoonish sense, but they are dangerous. And working with them requires the utmost care, protection, and respect. They are reminders that the Fae are not cute. They are powerful, and they demand that we, know what we're doing before we come knocking on their doors. So who or what are the Fae? Well, they are the story behind the story. The flicker in the corner of your eye. The rustle in the leaves when the wind is still. They are mystery, magic, and mirror. And when we honor them, not as, Disney spirits, but as complex, powerful beings, we step into a relationship that is real. It's not always comfortable, but it is honest. And it's full of lessons that no book can teach. We don't have to fully understand them to respect them, but as witches, it's our responsibility, I think, to approach everything with clarity, with protection, and above all, with reverence. All right, now that we've talked about the Fae, those dazzling, unpredictable beings who live beside our world, not in it, let's shift our focus to another kind of spirit. One that I believe is just as powerful, is definitely just as ancient, but entirely different in how they move, speak, and connect with us. Let's talk about nature spirits. Nature spirits aren't creatures of glamour or trickery. They don't belong to fairy courts or ride in wild hunts. They are not from the other world. They are of this one. They are the essence of the land itself. Wherever you stand right now, whether you're deep in the woods, on the edge of an ocean, tucked in your city apartment, or driving in your car, there are energies tied to that space. Spirits that are part of the land's story, not just visitors, not watchers, but guardians. Nature spirits are deeply, deeply rooted in one place. They're not beings that float between worlds. They are embedded in stone, water, wind, and root. They are the hum in the soil beneath your feet. They are the pulse in a mountain, the breath of a sacred spring. They don't always care about us, and they certainly do not exist for our use. But when they choose to interact, it's profound. Some of them are protective, right? Watching over sacred spaces. Others are going to be really curious, responding to offerings or song. And some are completely indifferent, living their lives in cycles without ever brushing against ours unless we provoke them or honor them. So I can mention one of the most powerful moments that I've ever had, and it wasn't, calling in deities or casting a complicated spell. It was sitting quietly beside a river I'd passed 100 times before and suddenly feeling a presence. Not as a metaphor, not as an imaginary energy. It was a living, aware, ancient being who had been there long before I arrived and who would remain long after. I am personally heavily tied to a very specific mountain range that my family has been going to for generations. And while I feel land spirits often for sure, it is up at this high altitude. It's up in the Sierra Mountains. that I know. Like I know. I just feel like my gifts are heightened. They are more in tune, more alive. That moment that I had though, that was a nature spirit. And it didn't speak in words. It spoke in like current and stillness, like in vibration. I felt it in my bones. I have felt it in homes, like the one I'm in now. The wood floors are almost 100 years old. And the house, the wood, the space, it all carries energy. So you can find nature spirits in nearly every spiritual tradition across the world, because wherever there is land, guess what? There is going to be some type of presence. But let's talk about a few. Dryads in Greek mythology is going to be our first one. And these are tree spirits, particularly tied to oaks. They are protectors of groves, often shy, but fierce when, their trees are threatened. So if you've ever walked around and felt like a tree was just watching you, or a grove gave you a deep, deep sense of peace, or maybe even warning, that might have been a dryad or a spirit like her. The other one's going to be a genius loci. This is a Latin term that means spirit of place, basically. So every location, from the smallest spring to an entire mountain range, has a genius loci, a spiritual essence that holds memory, power, and identity. When we connect with the genius loci of a place, we are tapping into its soul. Now, as witches, building a relationship with our local land spirits is, I think, one of the most grounding and respectful practices that we can do. We also have elemental spirits, and many witches, myself included, work with elemental spirits, which are basically the energetic beings tied to each of our classical elements: fire, water, air, and earth. And while not all land spirits are going to fall into these categories, they do give us a framework for understanding, how the elements themselves take spirit form. So for fire, we've got salamanders. They are the elemental spirit of flame, not the amphibians, but magical beings made of fire's essence. They bring energy, transformation, and passion. From the dancing flames of a bonfire to, the heat of the sun, salamanders teach us about drive, creativity, and destruction as a pathway to rebirth. They thrive on candlelight, bold declarations, and the heat of intention. You might notice them in, the dancing flames of a candle during your rituals. You might notice them around a bonfire during a celebration or transformation. Think Beltane vibes here. But you also might know or see them in a sudden burst of creative energy or passionate idea that just won't let go. We also have sylphs. This is the air element. Sylphs are elusive, graceful beings of the sky. They embody the winds and the breezes and inspiration itself. Often described as maybe winged or wispy, they are the messengers of thought, memory, and vision. Sylphs connect to our breath, our voice, and the quiet little whisper of intuition. They are great allies for dream work, communication, and spell work that involves movement and change. You might notice them on a sudden breeze during a spell work or a moment of decision. The way the wind moves through trees as if, speaking its own language. That inspiration that comes from the bird song or a feather floating at your feet. Naiads are another one. This is the water element. Undines or naiads in Greek lore are the spirits of water, rivers, springs, and lakes. They're deeply emotional, intuitive, and nurturing. These beings govern the realm of our feelings, psychic senses, and just that ebb and flow of life. When you commune with a stream, offer a song to the sea, or cry beside a rainstorm, you might be sharing space with an undine. They are drawn to gentle music, shells, and heartfelt expressions. You might notice them if you are near a natural spring, if you are next to a pond or a river with a calming or sacred energy. You might notice them in a bath when your intuition flows strong and clear. Or when, I don't know, you guys know when that rain feels like really healing instead of inconvenient, like it knows your mood. That would be a way to connect. And then we've got our gnomes, which is the earth element. Gnomes are sturdy spirits said to dwell in our soil, roots, and stones. They are the guardians of buried treasures, crystal caverns, and plant life. They represent stability, fertility, and the deep wisdom of the land. When you feel a solid, grounding force in nature, like the peace beneath a tree or the hush of a mossy path, you may be sensing gnome energy. They love offerings like bread and seed and, shiny stones. You might notice them in a mushroom ring at the base of an old tree while tending to your garden. All of a sudden you feel like, oh my gosh, somebody is watching me, or just the area is blessed. You might feel them in a quiet hush of a forest floor, especially near stones or roots. Each of these beings, each one brings a different kind of wisdom and power to the practice of witchcraft. When honored and respected, they can help you build a rich relationship with the land and the elements that surround you. These are not fairies. They are pure expressions of elemental energy. Well, I don't know. Maybe the gnomes, maybe, but they often appear in ceremonial and alchemical traditions, and when approached with respect, they can be powerful allies in spell work, ritual, and healing. All right, I just mentioned gnomes and the Fae. Are they part of the Fae world, or are they more with the elemental spirits? I don't know. That's a complicated one. I think the short answer is going to be, in some traditions, yes. In others, not quite. I think it really depends on whether you are working from folklore, ceremonial magic, or working in a modern witchcraft framework. I think in folk traditions, the answer is going to be sometimes yes, right? European folklore, especially like Germany and Scandinavian regions, gnomes were often seen as earth spirits who lived underground. They guarded treasure and they avoided humans. These stories sometimes overlap with tales of like dwarves and kobolds, and our house spirits, many of which are considered types of fae or like fae adjacent. So in older folk traditions, I'm going to say gnomes could be seen as kind of earth-aligned fae beings, part of the hidden world, yes, but quieter and more rooted than the flashy courtly types. Now in ceremonial magic and elemental systems, I'm going to say no, they are not fae. In our alchemical systems, like, those from the Renaissance or the Golden Dawn, gnomes are going to be classified as elemental spirits of earth, part of that four elemental system I just mentioned. Gnomes for earth, sylphs for air, naiads for water, the undines, and then salamanders for fire. These beings are seen more like pure spirit expressions of their element rather than autonomous beings with like culture, courts, or mischief activity like the Fae. In this view, I would say gnomes are not Fae. They are elemental. Now, in our modern witchcraft practices, gosh, you guys, I don't know, what do you think? More like Fae aligned, right? Or Fae adjacent? Yeah, I would say probably, right? The eclectic pagan practices, modern witchcraft practices, I think we're going to find or see gnomes are considered Fae adjacent. Like that means they may not be court bound like the Seelie or the Unseelie, but they do live in that same otherworldly ecosystem of hidden spirits, land guardians, and magical beings. I think they're usually seen as earthly for sure, grounded, right? Yes, and private, definitely protective of their space or their hoard. Occasionally helpful if respected, but easily offended if disrespected. And yes, I know that sounds familiar, right? That is pretty Fae behavior. So I don't know. While they might not be technically part of the Seelie court or the Fae royalty, I do think many witches place them under the broader umbrella of Fae beings, especially when doing hedgecraft, nature spirit work, or fairy path practices. But okay, let's get back to our land spirits. We also have mountain and river spirits. From the misty peaks of, the mountains in Japan, to the misty rivers honored in West African traditions, to the sacred wells of the Celtic lands. Mountain and rivers are often seen as like beings in their own right. They're not just landscapes. These spirits are ancient. They hold power, memory, and the stories of people who lived beside them. They are not Fae, but they are deeply, deeply alive. Working with nature spirits isn't flashy. I think that's what makes it so transformative. They don't have courtly games. They don't have any riddles to solve. They just are, just present. They're still. They are just truth. If the Fae are like the firelight, beautiful, unpredictable, alluring, then nature spirits are like the embers in the earth, quiet, warm, and endlessly deep. As witches, I think when we learn to listen to the land, to move with its rhythms instead of just taking from it, it opens up something within us, like a remembering, a rerouting. This is the work that connects us to our ancestors, to our bones, and to the land that we stand on right now. Not some imagined fantasy, but the sacred, pulsing world that is always holding us. All right, how to recognize and honor nature spirits. When it comes to working with nature spirits, I think one of the most important things to understand is that they are not here to entertain us. They're not the tricksters, right? They don't play games. They don't respond to performance. Unlike the Fae, who might lure and tease or test us, nature spirits simply exist. They are presence, not personality. And yet their energy is some of the most sacred and grounding that we can work with. Nature spirits don't knock on the door. They don't ask for attention. They are not here to dazzle or charm. But if we learn to slow down, to listen, and to approach with respect, they will respond. And the relationship that unfolds is often quiet, subtle, and absolutely life-changing. All right, so how do we recognize them? More often than not, nature spirits speak in feeling rather than form. You're not going to see them with your eyes necessarily, but you will feel something shift. A sudden stillness in the trees. A pulse in your feet when you step onto a certain patch of land. A hush that isn't silent, but sacred. And it's going to be that sensation, like something ancient just acknowledged your presence. They also communicate through signs and dreams. You might start seeing the same animal repeatedly after visiting a certain grove. You might dream of water every night after meditating by a stream. You might find feathers and stones or, leaves that seem to carry messages that only you can understand. This is how they speak, through resonance. And if your energy is open, respectful, and consistent, I think they begin to recognize you in return. Now let's talk about how to honor them. Again, it's not a command, right? We're not going to summon, but we are going to build the right relationship. The key here is simplicity. I believe that nature spirits don't need complicated rituals or elaborate words. They want authenticity. So try one of these practices. Try leaving an offering at a tree or stream or a stone that feels alive to you. Water, herbs, a song, even a few words of gratitude whispered in the wind. Try sitting in stillness, like no phone, no agenda, just breathe with the land and listen. Presence is a powerful offering. Try tending to the earth. Pick up trash, plant native species, protect sacred spaces. This is one of the most profound nature spirit work that we can do. Try creating a small outdoor altar using natural objects gifted to you, not taken without permission. Let it become a living prayer, shifting with the seasons. Above all, though, approach with humility, right? These land spirits don't want worship. They want care, connection. They want a witch who listens as much as we speak. And here's something I've learned in my own practice. I think nature spirits remember you. They may not greet you loudly, but they'll hold your presence in the land. And over time, you'll feel it. An ease, a welcome, a subtle shifting of energy every time you return. So working with them isn't about getting results, right? It's about cultivating reverence. I know I keep saying that word, but I think the deeper that connection, that relationship becomes, the more we begin to realize that we are not working with the land, like we are the land. We are the spirits within it, our kin, and we can honor that bond like the sacred trust that it is. Okay, I have a great comparison chart for us today. I have written out Fae versus land spirits, and it is the easiest way to break them down side by side because in witchy spaces, especially when we are first diving into the unseen world, there are some big misconceptions that tend to, just kind of blur the lines between Fae and nature spirits. And honestly, that blur can get us into trouble if we are not paying attention. So let's set the record straight real quick before we jump into the Fae versus nature spirits chart. Not just because it's good lore, but because when we understand who we are working with, we can create a more powerful, respectful, and aligned magic. All right, misconception number 1, all Fae are cute and friendly. No, hard no. The Fae are not tiny glittered winged beings who exist to grant wishes and play tag in toadstool rings. That's the equivalent in folklore, to calling a volcano a campfire. Yes, some Fae are helpful. Some are even gentle or curious. But many are ancient, powerful, and deeply indifferent to humans. Others are mischievous, right? Or outright malevolent if you disrespect their space, ignore their rules, or make assumptions. I think the closer truth, instead, all Fae are cute and friendly, is that Fae are complex beings with their own agendas, their own courts, and their own social structures. They are not our spirit guides. They are not here to be tamed or commanded. They are the good neighbors. They are the hidden folk. And those names exist because of respect and caution. Okay, misconception number 2. Nature spirits are little woodland helpers. This one might come from, pop culture or overly simplified books, but it's just as misleading. Nature spirits are not sidekicks, right? They are not here to help us with our garden spells or tidy up our altars like magical woodland janitors. These beings are tied to the very essence of the land, to the breath of a mountain, to the soul of a forest, to the deep current of an old river. They may choose to interact with us. They may even support our work if our intentions align with theirs, but they are not here to help in the way that many people expect. They are guardians, watchers, and beings of place, not assistants. All right, what's the core difference, Fae versus land spirits? Well, I think the Fae live in their world. I know the Fae live in their world. Nature and land spirits live in this one. They live in our world. If you forget everything else that we talk about here, just remember, this might be the most important distinction of all. The Fae are often understood as beings of the other world, right? That parallel realm that runs alongside ours, but operates on entirely different rules. When we work with the Fae, we are crossing a threshold, interacting with a world that does not play by human expectations or timelines. Nature spirits, on the other hand, are rooted in this world. They are a part of the living landscape, woven into the soil, the trees, the air that we breathe. When we work with them, we are not stepping out of this world. We are stepping deeper into it. That is a powerful distinction because it reminds us that our practice isn't always about leaving this reality behind. It's about listening to the spirit that already lives here with us. Okay, let's do that chart. It's a good chart that I've worked on that is truly a comparison of the Fae versus the land spirits. So think of two columns here. We've got Fae, right? The fairy folk, fairies, the good neighbors. Next column, we have nature spirits. These are our elementals, genus Loki, and our land spirits. First, let's talk about origins. The Fae are rooted in Celtic, European, and some global folklore for sure, often depicted as part of an other world that exists alongside ours. Nature spirits are spirits directly tied to the land. Their origins are land elements and natural forces, and they are found in many, many cultures worldwide. Next, we have natures of being. With the Fae, this can be like a humanoid, shapeshifter, or even a beastly image. Often independent entities with their own societies, right? We've got the Seelie and the Unseelie courts. Natures of being with our nature spirits, those tend to be bound to specific locations or elements. Again, like our forests, rivers, our mountains, or the wind. Relationship with humans? Well, the Fae are going to be tricky, unpredictable. They can be helpful and they can be harmful. Many test, reward, or punish based on human actions. Often require careful respect and offerings. Now, relationship with humans for our nature spirits, well, these usually are going to be guardians of a place or element. They are less likely to deceive, but will react to human actions. They may bless or withdraw energy from those who harm their domain. Now, as far as associated realms, the Fae live in a parallel world, the other world, right? Fairyland or Underhill. Some can cross over into our realm. Associated realms for nature spirits, they are directly connected to the Earth's natural forces, our forests, our rivers, our caves, the wind, and mountains. Now, for behavior and personality, the Fae are going to be mischievous, capricious, playful, even dangerous. Many follow their own rules and moral codes. And behavior and personality with our nature spirits, well, it's fairly neutral, but protective of their homes, right? They can be hostile if disrespected. As far as types and examples, with our Fae, fairy folk, fairies, and our good neighbors, we have Seelie Fae, Unseelie Fae, and Elemental Fae. The Seelie Fae are the benevolent, but a little tricky Fae. They are the pixies, brownies, and elves. Unseelie Fae are going to be our darker, chaotic, dangerous Fae. Our red caps, think of our banshees and the slaw with these guys. And then we've got Elemental Fae, our water nymphs, our dryads, and our selkies. Now, as far as types and examples with nature spirits, go back to, the earth spirits that we talked about, the dryads, the gnomes. Think about your water spirits, the naiads, think of fresh water, the undines. Go to your air spirits, the sylphs, the wind spirits. Think of your fire spirits, the salamanders. And then the guardian spirits, the genus Loki, the local land spirits, your mountain spirits. Now, as far as offerings and respect, for the Fae, focus on like honey, milk, bread, some wine, shiny trinkets. Avoid saying thank you, right? Implies a debt. And never take anything without permission. As far as offering and respect with nature spirits, I would look at water, stones, herbs, tobacco in some cultures. Simply acknowledging them, though, and showing gratitude is often enough. All right, so why does that matter? Why does the difference matter? Well, because as witches, we are not just working with magic. We are building relationships And every relationship begins with knowing who you are talking to. When we treat Fae like friendly woodland creatures or treat land spirits like Fae royalty, I think we risk offending them, or worse, missing the real magic that is being offered. So the Fae deserve respect. Nature spirits deserve reverence. And you, my friend, deserve to know exactly who you're sharing your energy with. When we learn to honor, these beings for who they truly are, I believe our magic gets deeper, our protection gets stronger, and our connection to the unseen becomes something real, not fantasy, but living, breathing spirit work. Let's be, the kind of witches who walk with awareness, who listen, who see. All right, let's bring this conversation a tad bit closer to home and talk about our craft, because all of this distinction between the Fae and nature spirits is not just a fun magical trivia game, right? It actually shapes the way we as witches move through the world. It shapes how we cast, how we offer, how we protect, and how we connect. Let's start with the Fae. Working with the Fae in witchcraft is not lighthearted or casual. It is not the same as lighting a candle for a deity or calling on a spirit guide for support. The Fae, especially those aligned with the courts, require diplomacy. They are not just land spirits, they are their own people with their own laws, their own culture, and their own hierarchy. I think some witches choose to avoid working with the Fae altogether, and that's valid. It's not out of fear, but it's out of respect. Others, myself included, may build very specific relationships with certain Fae energies over time. Usually it's done, though, through offerings, ritual, and carefully worded intentions. This is a path that requires clarity, consistency, and caution. When you call on the Fae, you are not just engaging with spirit. You are opening the door to another realm. And once it's opened, it doesn't always shut easily. It's a magical relationship that must be approached like any diplomatic exchange, right? With respect, boundaries, and a healthy dose of discernment. Now, nature spirits, these beings are often more approachable, especially for witches who work closely with the land. Animists, green witches, hedge witches, I think we tend to feel their presence naturally. They respond to caretaking, not, ritualized grandeur. They do not need poetry or perfect spell work. They want presence. They want intention and respect. I think one of the most powerful ways to work with nature spirits is through land stewardship. Cleaning up trash from a local stream, tending to native plants or restoring overgrown pathways, offering water to a tree during a dry spell, or simply sitting in stillness saying, "I see you." These become acts of ritual when offered with love. They build trust, and that trust deepens our craft, not just symbolically, but energetically. It's also worth noting that there are beings who exist in both realms, right? The dryads, for example, tree spirits, can be seen as both nature spirits and part of the broader Fae ecosystem, depending, again, on your tradition. Some appear rooted, still, and deeply tied to their tree, clearly of the land. Others may drift into realms of glamour and wild enchantment, blending the line between Fae and land spirit. But even then, not all nature spirits are Fae. A mountain spirit, for example, is not playing games or attending fairy court. That spirit is ancient, massive, and protective of its terrain in a completely different way. It doesn't shimmer or tease. It guards. It watches. It holds memory. So as we move forward in our practice, we can just remember, that witchcraft isn't about calling in every shiny being that might listen. It's about building reciprocal relationships with those who wish to be known and with those who've been here a really long time. The Fae may invite us into the world, but we should never walk in unannounced. The nature spirits are already with us. We simply need to pause and acknowledge them. Both paths are sacred. Both are powerful. And it's up to us to decide which connections we are ready for and which require maybe a little bit more time, study, and trust. I do want to add a quick insert for our witchy work witches portion because land spirits can be connected to us with our office magic. So can the Fae for that matter. Now, last week I purposely skipped this section as I personally do not want to work with or invite the dark or shadow Fae to my corporate world. But for today's topic, it is worth mentioning. How can we, as witches, invite the presence of nature spirits and Fae energy into our workplaces, especially when we are surrounded by, fluorescent lights and spreadsheets and maybe some not so magical coworkers, customers, clients, and bosses? Well, nature spirits are all about a place, right? So even if you're not in a forest or garden, the building you work in is still on land, right? It is still on energetic roots that have history, and you can honor that. If you would like to work with and invite land spirits in, I would first leave quiet offerings, right? A few drops of water in a discreet bowl, a small leaf or stone or shell on your desk. Even a potted plant can be an altar if it's cared for with intention. I would also speak to the space, right? Before or after hours, say a quiet acknowledgement. Spirits of this land, this building, this place, I honor you. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Right? You don't have to be loud. We don't have to be loud. We just have to be sincere. And then I would also tend to the space mindfully. Keep your desk clean. Dust your plant. Offer a flower now and then. Even organizing, a shared coffee area or picking up trash outside counts as sacred tending. Nature spirits love when we care for what's already here. Now, what about inviting Fae energy at work? Okay, we can do it, but that's a different dance, but we can do it. The Fae don't root into a space the same way nature spirits do, but they can pass through. Some witches love to invite a touch of Fae energy for inspiration, maybe a little cleverness, charm, and creative flow. But caution, don't invite wild, unseelie types into your workplace unless you are really ready to stir the pot. All right, some ground rules before you invite for your office environment. I would be very, very specific. If you are inviting Fae presence, be clear. Try words like, only those Fae of good intent, respectful energy, and creative flow may enter this space. All others must pass by. I would always set a boundary or a ward too. Like salt in a jar, a ring of basil, a circle of crystals, something, even a small charm in a hidden, space of your drawer. This says, hey, this is my desk. You may visit, but you may not stay uninvited. Now, if you want to work with the Fae at the office in your corporate world, bring a touch of natural glamour, right? A shiny stone, a delicate wind chime by your window, or just a spritz of fairy-aligned essential oils. The Fae love beauty, but they also like boundaries. Leave sweet offerings, little bit of honey on your teaspoon, or a bite of sweetbread tucked into a napkin on your altar plant. Don't eat or throw away Fae offerings. Dispose of them later with intention. And you can invite them into your creativity. If your work involves writing, design, problem solving, or even storytelling, ask for inspiration. Light a small tea light, if allowed, at your office, or simply just place your hands over your project and say, "Good neighbors of clever tongue and light feet, bless this work with brilliance and ease. And then if you just want to add some type of witchy altar stuff to your corporate world, a little stone or crystal for grounding. Go smoky quartz, moss agate, hematite even. Do a tiny potted plant as a living offering. A little bowl of water, refreshed weekly with intention. Do a drawer charm, something with herbs for protection and clarity. Grab a bay leaf, thyme, lavender for that one. And you could have a little journal or spell planner tucked under your keyboard just to anchor your magical intentions. You don't need a forest to be in to commune with nature. You don't need a moonlit evening to call in magic. You just need intention, respect, and the willingness to listen. Witchcraft at work isn't always grand rituals. It's the way you move through your space, the way you tend to the small things, the way you open and close your day with awareness. And yes, even the Fae will peek in from time to time, curious about the witch lighting the candles in her mind while typing emails. Just make sure they know the office rules. All right, let's wrap up the month of April. Oh my goodness, you guys, before we move over to the big Beltane celebration next week. Over the past 3 episodes, we have been walking a very magical path. 1 foot in this world, 1 foot in the other world, and now we are standing at the threshold of something powerful. We began by walking between the worlds, right? The magic of the Fae, where we explored who the Fae truly are, not just the sweet storybook sprites, but ancient, complex, magical beings from the other world. We opened the door to understanding their culture, their realms, and their rules. We reminded ourselves that connection with the Fae isn't just aesthetic. It is sacred, and it must be approached with respect, clarity, and strong boundaries. Then we descended into the shadows with the dark Fae and shadow folk. We talked about when fairies aren't so friendly. In that episode last week, we didn't just speak of danger, we spoke of depth. We explored changelings, tricksters, and the wild hunt. We talked about fear as a teacher and how these darker energies can mirror our own inner truths. Shadow work became a sacred part of this path, showing us that not all darkness is evil, right? And not all light is safe. And now today, here we are in the Fae versus Nature Spirits episode. We've grounded ourselves. We've made the vital distinction between the Fae, who walk between the worlds, and nature spirits, who are woven into the land itself. We've discussed how our offerings, rituals, and relationships shift depending on, who we are connecting with. Because as witches, knowing who we are calling in is just as important as why. So these 3 episodes form a magical progression, and they are not just random lore lessons. They have been preparing us for Beltane. Why does all of this matter? What is the connection to Beltane? Well, Beltane, on May 1st, is the turning of the wheel where life just bursts forward. The veil thins and the Fae are especially active. This is one of the most potent cross-culture Sabbats for spirit interaction, fertility of the land, and energetic awakening. It is a time when the Fae walk more freely, when nature spirits stir with growth, and when our magical energy is called to bloom. But here's the thing. You don't walk into Beltane blindly, right? You walk in prepared, rooted, clear. These episodes have helped us do that. We've learned to see through the glamour. We've learned to face the shadows that test our resolve. We've honored the land beneath our feet. And we have remembered that working with spirit, whether Fae or nature, is in fact a sacred relationship, not a fantasy. So as we step towards Beltane, we carry these teachings with us. We don't just light the fire. We ask what we're burning away and what we are calling in. We don't just dance the spiral. We ask who walks with us and what they are teaching us. And we don't just leave offerings. We listen to the silence after. So thank you for walking this path with me. I think together we've laid some, pretty good groundwork. We've honored the wild, the shadowed, and the rooted. And now, guess what? We are ready to celebrate. We are ready to step into the light with eyes open and magic humming. Beltane is coming, and next week's episode is devoted all to it. I cannot wait to share it with you. All right, for now though, I do have a poem for today's episode. I will go grab it and the moon update for this week, and I will be right back. Okay, this poem is a little bit shorter than my normal ones are, only because this weekend it is another busy working weekend on Hearth and Hen. Last weekend I had my older son with me, and this weekend I have my younger son with me, so it has been busy, building the chicken coop, doing Hearth and Hen stuff, and just working on the space to be. But I did write a poem. It's a short one, but it is good for today's episode. And it goes. The Fae wear bells and shimmer bright. They dance through dreams and moonlit nights. They whisper truce with crooked grin and vanished fast as they begin. But land spirits hum in moss and stone, their voices deep, their magic groan. They hold the stillness, root and rain, and do not seek our praise or name. So if you hear a song so sweet, or feel a pulse beneath your feet, ask not who, but what do you seek? For one will trick, and one will teach. Okay, the moon this week, well, my friends, she is waning crescent. It's that last stage before she goes dark this weekend. There is a sacred hush that just falls across the world as the moon wanes. After the brilliance of the full moon, the light softens, folds inward. The energy shifts from expansion to release, from calling to letting go. This is the moon phase where our magic turns quiet, but it's never weak. In fact, waning and dark moon magic might be some of the most powerful work that we can do, because it asks us to move with intention, to shed what's no longer needed, and to reclaim our power from the shadows. This is a time of cord cutting and banishment, releasing old habits and guilt or grief. It's a time for shadow work and ancestral healing. It's a time for closing portals, endings, and final truce. And you know what? It's a time for resting and retreating without shame. Under the waning moon, we begin the process of unraveling. We clean out drawers, delete old contacts, sweep out our altars. We ask ourselves, what am I still carrying that is not mine? What can I set down now so I can walk forward lighter? And when we enter the dark moon this weekend, when the sky is starless and the moon just disappears, this is the moment of deepest mystery. It is the womb of the moon cycle, the in-between, a place where we are invited to surrender, to go still, to listen to the wisdom that we bury under noise and light. The dark moon is not absence of magic. It is a return to it. It is the cauldron, the cave, the breath before the spell is spoken. In this phase, we do not have to create. We do not have to manifest. We simply need to be with ourselves, honestly, gently, and without fear. So if you are feeling tired like I am, if you're feeling a little tender or uncertain right now, you are not behind. You are in rhythm. You are in sync with the soft pull of the moon retreating inward. Let yourself rest. Let yourself release. Let yourself be reborn in the silence. Because just beyond this darkness is a sliver of silver light that is launching with Beltane. And we, witches of the moon, we know how to rise with it. I hope you have a magical rest of your week, an amazing weekend, and I will talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.